Hello, today we're going to talk about how I got to this, basically. This is a file I made, I want to say like over a year ago, but it's gotten a lot of like reblogs, like a lot. Mostly because Breath of the Wild's like the best game I've ever played, but also just because people like dragons, so it was like two good things in one, I guess. So it's a style that I don't do too often actually, but I think that it's worth it to talk about how I made it. And so what a lot of people do on Patreon is they offer files that have all the layers so you can see how they make stuff. The thing is, those layers make zero sense. I remember being in school and we got James Jean Photoshop files and we were super excited because it was the holy grail, and we opened them up in my friend's Photoshop, and like we were using CS4. I don't even think this is the same CS, and we just had no idea what the hell any of it was. And so, I rather than just give you a file, I want to walk you through what I did and explain all the layers, because there's a lot of layers to it. And this is something I made on a stream over 2 sessions. This was the second session, this was the first session. So you're going to see go from that to this. And it's a different vibe from that to this. Parts of me like some of this a little bit better, especially in the hands, but we'll talk about that later. So to start, this is the file, the original file. Let's look at how many layers are on here. 38. Hypothetically, it has 40, but these are like the streaming layers where it goes, thanks for watching, and stretch break, and whatever. Because this one I didn't have any microphone on. For a while I couldn't stream with my microphone on, long story. So this is the first thing I did, is I had this idea of I want to do Link with his arrows, and I had him facing me. Now, I had already drawn this pose before, so I was like, I don't know about this pose. But I had this vague idea if I should put like some dragons around, and so I have this drawn out like this. And I used a lot of different brushes for this. I was playing with the Kyle Webster pack. I can see a little bit of this brush. This is my biggest soft boy brush. And in another video I talk a bit about this brush in particular. I got it from a pack where everything crashes my computer, so I can't help you out there. But something I do want to talk about when you're setting something up is you'll notice that this is a very quick brush to use. And that's because the spacing is pretty big. It's got a lot of texture on it, but it's such a big brush that I can make it look as if I've done a lot of work when I haven't. And if you look back at this as well, I've used a lot of like liner brushes. This is a liner brush, just a normal liner brush. That one's kind of huge. Sometimes you have to click on it twice to get the right size. There you go. This type of thing, and just in white to cover up where I had made that texture before. And I've got a little bit of a crackly brush going on. That's just from the Kyle Webster pack. It was probably, let's see, let's open them up. You go down here, I'll just kind of guide you through it, because that's why you're here. He's got a mega pack with an ink box. So it's probably one of these. He's got nibs. It was probably this one. Nibs that kind of have like a cool texture to the side of them. And they're fun to use. And that's how I came up with that. And this was on the background layer. Unfortunate. Sometimes we make mistakes. That was a mistake I made. And so then I thought, well, I'll put on a new layer, because I felt like I didn't have enough impact here. So I added this brown layer, which is just taking this color, putting it on, and then making it 40%, and then brought the white out. Or just kind of added a little bit more in this case, with this kind of like in-between color, and this is where I wanted to put the dragons. And it was like kind of cool, but I could tell I was going to run into some problems. Then I thought, well, I'll just put on this green layer. And this is still normal, just opacity's down, 59 I want to say. And I was pulling colors from this up here. I keep a lot of colors that I like. I put them next to each other if they come from the same painting. Like I'll find a painting with a really cool color combo. I'll just save it up here so that later if I choose colors next to each other, they look good together, and I already know they look good. I started drawing out some Link stuff, but I was running into some anatomy issues. I wasn't quite sure how to do this. I felt like I had done this before, so I said, screw it all, let's start over. And so I moved his position, because I hadn't done arrows like this before. And so then I drew him, kind of looking at reference on my phone while I go, because this was on a stream, so I couldn't just... Sometimes I paste my reference into my picture, and that helps a lot, because when I have two windows open, sometimes it crashes or slows down my computer a lot. You know, that is a thing you can do. You can do window arrange tile vertically, and you can have your reference just in other video, like other windows around. You can also have them just stack, but sometimes that one's squirrely. So I did that, but then I was like, there's no contrast, so I brought it in. And that's what this layer does. This is a multiply layer with like a kind of navy color on it, because I wanted to have a feeling of night. Something that I really like about this game is the way that they rendered it is that there's always light coming from behind Link. It must be like an invisible light source. It's just always ever present no matter what time of day it is. And it makes a really beautiful, beautiful picture all the time because it's very easy to see him. And so I wanted to recreate that look. So that's why you can see the edges. And then I made it a little bit warmer, because the warmer something is, the more forward it comes. And that's when I decided to work on my boys. That's where the dragons come in. And that's what this is all about. And as you can see, this is kind of a mess. I was just super loosey-goosey. I just have these ideas. I'm looking up stuff on like my phone because I don't have these guys from memory in my head. I'm using these brushes. I think it's good to look at it. I'm using some really thick, chunky brushes. Not this one so much. This one looks like it is more like a painting brush. He has some painting brushes. Maybe it's the ratty one. Ooh, I definitely used that one later. I think the ratty one went into most of it later. But this one I think is even an oil brush that just was very big and had like this kind of coffee bean looking texture to it. Let's see if I can find this guy. Just know, if you have the Kyle Webster pack, which again you get from going here, get more brushes. It's free with Photoshop CC, and it's a great place to really like up your game when it comes to your Photoshop painting if you've never done that. So after that, I couldn't see anything anymore. Like originally I thought if I made the dragons really bright, I could still see where Link is, but I'm not getting that vibe, right? So I put on this layer of just blue. What the blue did is it was only on, well, it was everywhere. And then I decided to pick out the blue with this mask, and pressing a mask is here, and everywhere that's black is where this blue doesn't go. And using the same thick brushes, I believe I'm using a different brush now. This is no longer the coffee bean brush. It might be. I kind of located where I wanted to go. Now we're still not in the place where I decided to stop. This is where we are right now. So I went in, some more brushes, and this is where I switched to that ratty brush from before. Usually I use brushes that are quite different, but because of just the way this game is rendered, I wanted to have very solid light and dark. I wasn't so worried about the transition gradation. I wanted to feel very posterized, if that makes sense. And so the difference from here to there was mostly thinking about the path of light and trying to make sure that my lights were all connected and my darks were all connected, so that way there was a path that your eye follows that isn't broken too much. And then I made this nice blue, and I believe that's where I stopped. So for the next day, this is at layer 18 now, I just started adding little details. Again, that small little ratty brush, maybe it was a different one than ratty. But at first I decided to add in these colors that are there, but they were kind of pulling the eye to a place where it stops. And so I decided to go back to where I had gone originally, see how dark that is, by bringing it back down. And then up here I did the same. and then I brought it back down. And I even added a little bit more texture in that shadow side before deciding the whole anatomy was wrong and fixing it like this. Even though it's still posterized, like very different from my normal style. Thinking about that path of light before diving right in there, because after I had laid this roadmap, then I could just go nuts with texture and detail, and I knew I was going to draw that back in later. So I went in, and this was more of like my own opinion. I wanted to kind of make this more appealing the way this is all laid out, and I really liked this color combo, so I wanted to keep it, because in the beginning we made kind of a mess, but we made good colors. And then I did the same down here. And this right here is just that little tiny corner. Wow, I made a layer that was just this. After that, we go to our focal point. A lot of people leave the focal point till the very end so they make sure that it really stands out. This was just because I wanted to draw dragons first, let's be honest. And there he is. And finishing up, these are all just polishing layers, as you can see. I added a new layer whenever I wanted to be able to delete, because I was like, I have a lot of good work here, I don't want to screw it up, so I do a new layer. In this case, it was also because I wasn't certain that I'd be happy with changing that nose. Put that back in, that bad boy, some more details, and then I felt like this was too bright, and so I brought it down. And that decision was made because I didn't want him to blend into the background, so I made it just a little bit less so that the brightest blues would be here in the front, so they would really feel like they were coming forward. Some last minute details, fixing up those arrows, adding some glint and stuff, and then I had some decisions. Where do I want to put this arrow? I remember this was really hard for me because I wanted the arrows falling out. I had drawn that in, but I didn't know where to put them. And then arrow problems, right? That's where I decided in the end. And this layer is literally just that. And then I signed it. So after all that was done, I had to get it ready for printing, which is why this layer happened. I know it seems really bright, but the reason why is when you print something, it always comes out way darker. And so when I did a test print, it looked wrong, which is why I made it lighter. It'll print much darker. It's just kind of how it works. Also, it just looks a little bit, as far as printing goes, I felt like that was better, even though online this is better for sure. And again, these were just those. And so that was every layer that went into this project. You kind of see it step by step. This one doesn't have any magic really going on the layers. They're all normal layers where there's just drawing on it. Except down in the beginning where we looked at changing things like multiply and stuff. Wow, you can still see the difference. It's layer 10. And those were just done to try to get the color right. And so this is a piece where first I did composition, then I looked at color, and then I started noodling. So there was never really a phase where I was drawing until the very end. And that's how I tend to do things digitally, is I don't like to start with line work. To each his own. I've been trying to get more into doing more line work when I do digital. But that's also, I think, just because that's how I learned how to do art, was from a very painterly perspective first. I did a lot of still lifes and a lot of paintings. I wasn't really into doing just drawings until later. It felt kind of naked to just draw. So I think that's why I do it this way. If we zoom in, you'll see more of the texture of that brush. These are things you can't really see when you view it online. And so that's why I highly recommend looking at textury brushes, because it makes it so that you don't have to noodle so much. Anyway, so that is the end of this little walkthrough of how I made this drawing that got popular for some reason, but thanks for the reblogs, I guess. And if there's any other paintings that you're just like, man, how'd you make that? feel free to ask me. I'm actually not the type that'll be like, don't ask me about my brushes or something, because who cares about, like, how do I put it? Some people are really weird about saying that if you ask about brushes, that makes you a bad artist, and that's not really true. I think that when you find artists hang out together, we talk a lot about our brushes. We talk a lot about it. It's actually very important. So feel free to ask me those types of questions. If there's any other pieces that you want to see in detail, I might still have the Photoshop files and I can do these walkthroughs with, because not that hard for me to do. And if they're interesting, let me know. And that's it. See you later.